The year was 1967, and director Jean-Pierre Melville was preparing to film what would become one of the greatest crime movies ever made, Le Samouraï. But there was a problem. Despite Alain Delon's natural charisma and proven acting ability, Melville wasn't convinced that his star truly understood the psychology of a professional assassin. Alain had the look, the style, the presence, Melville later recalled. But playing a hitman isn't just about looking cool in a trench coat. It's about understanding a very specific psychology, a particular way of moving through the world that most actors can only guess at. Alain was struggling with the character of Jeff Costello, the emotionless professional killer who lived by a strict code and operated in the shadows of Paris. During the first week of filming, Melville repeatedly stopped scenes, unsatisfied with what he was seeing. "You're playing him like a regular person pretending to be a killer," Melville told Alain after one particularly frustrating take. "I need you to understand what it actually feels like to be someone for whom violence is just another tool, like a carpenter's hammer or a surgeon's scalpel." The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. François Marcantoni, Alain's friend with connections to the Corsican underworld, mentioned the conversation to someone he knew in the criminal world. Word eventually reached a man known only as Henri, a professional killer who had been operating across Europe for over 2 decades. Henri was unlike the stereotypical image of a hitman. He was soft-spoken, impeccably dressed, and could have easily been mistaken for a banker or university professor. He was also, according to those who knew his reputation, one of the most efficient and successful contract killers in the Mediterranean. "I heard about your film," Henri told Marcantoni during a chance meeting at a café in Marseille. "I've always been curious about how Hollywood portrays my profession. Usually they get everything wrong." When Marcantoni suggested that Henri might be interested in serving as a technical consultant on the film, the killer's response was unexpected. "It might be amusing to see if an actor can truly understand what I do." The arrangement was made through intermediaries, with Henri's identity carefully protected. Officially, he was listed in the film's credits as H. Dubois, security consultant. Only Melville, Alain, and a few key production members knew his true background. Henri's first day on set was memorable for how unremarkable he seemed. He arrived precisely on time, wearing a perfectly tailored suit, and spoke in quiet, measured tones. He observed the filming for several hours without saying a word, taking notes in a small leather notebook. During a break in filming, Henri approached Alain with his assessment. "You move like someone who's afraid of being noticed. A professional moves like someone who belongs wherever he is. You're trying to be invisible. That's amateur thinking." What followed was the most unusual acting coaching in cinema history. Henri began teaching Alain not just how to move and speak like a professional killer, but how to think like one. "A professional doesn't get angry," Henri explained during one of their sessions. "Anger is a luxury that gets you killed. Everything is calculated, measured, controlled. When you walk into a room, you don't look around nervously. You already know every exit, every potential weapon, every person who could be a threat. You know all of this before you walk in, because professionals prepare." Henri taught Alain how to observe without appearing to watch, how to move through crowds while maintaining complete spatial awareness, and how to project an aura of quiet competence that discouraged unwanted attention. "The goal isn't to be scary," Henri explained. "Scary people attract attention from police, from security, from other criminals who want to prove themselves. The goal is to be unremarkable until the moment you need to be remarkable." The transformation in Alain's performance was immediate and dramatic. Where before he had been playing a character, now he seemed to have become one. His movements became more economical, his expressions more controlled, his entire presence more focused and purposeful. Cast members noticed the change immediately. "It was like working with a different person," recalled Alain Delon, who played Alain's girlfriend in the film. There was something in his eyes that hadn't been there before, something cold and distant and completely professional. The most striking example of Henri's influence came during the filming of the assassination scene that opens the movie. In the original script, Jeff Costello was supposed to show some emotion, perhaps satisfaction or relief, after completing his kill. But when they filmed the scene, Alain's expression remained completely blank. "Cut!" called Melville. "Alain, you need to show something. The audience needs to understand that the job is complete." Henri, who had been watching from behind the cameras, quietly approached the director. "If I may," he said politely, "a professional doesn't feel satisfaction or relief. He feels nothing. The job is complete, so he moves to the next task. Emotion is a liability in this work." They reshot the scene with Alain maintaining his expressionless demeanor, and the result was chilling in its authenticity. The lack of emotion was more frightening than any expression of satisfaction could have been. Henri's influence extended beyond just the technical aspects of playing a killer. He helped Alain understand the psychology of someone who lived completely outside normal social and moral frameworks. Most people are governed by emotion, by relationships, by social expectations, Henri explained. A professional killer has removed all of that. He operates on pure logic and efficiency. It's not that he can't feel emotions, it's that he has trained himself not to let them interfere with his work. This understanding allowed Alain to portray Jeff Costello not as a monster, but as someone who had become so focused on his profession that he had eliminated everything else that might make him human. It was a performance of stunning subtlety and power. The filming process became increasingly intense as Alain absorbed more of Henri's teachings. He began staying in character between takes, maintaining the killer's psychological distance even when cameras weren't rolling. Some cast members found it unsettling to interact with him. "It was method acting taken to an extreme level," recalled cinematographer Henri Decaix. Alain wasn't just playing a killer, he was thinking like one. He would analyze the set for security vulnerabilities, position himself near exits, and observe everyone with the kind of cold assessment that was genuinely intimidating. Henri also taught Alain about the killer's relationship with violence. "Violence isn't personal," he explained. "It's a tool. You don't get emotional about using a screwdriver or a telephone. Violence is the same. It's simply the most efficient solution to certain problems." But perhaps the most valuable lesson Henri provided was about patience and timing. He taught Alain that a professional killer spent most of his time waiting, observing, and planning. The actual moment of killing might last seconds, Henri explained, but the preparation can take days, weeks, or even months. Most of your time is spent being invisible, blending in, watching. This lesson profoundly influenced how Alain approached the famous apartment scene in Le Samouraï, where Jeff sits motionless, listening to the same jazz record repeatedly. Originally, Melville had envisioned this as a brief sequence, but after Henri's input, they extended it to show the full psychological reality of a professional's life. The audience needs to understand that this isn't exciting work, Henri told Melville. It's methodical, repetitive, and often boring. The excitement that people associate with killing is completely false. A professional experiences the same level of emotional engagement that an accountant might feel while balancing books. Henri also shared insights about how professionals managed their public personas. "You need to be completely ordinary," he explained to Alain. "The moment you stand out in any way, too handsome, too well-dressed, too confident, too nervous, you become memorable, and being memorable will get you caught." This teaching led to subtle but important changes in Alain's wardrobe and styling for the film. Instead of the fashionable, eye-catching clothing he might normally wear, Jeff's outfits were deliberately unremarkable, well-made but completely forgettable. Even Elaine's famous blue eyes were often partially obscured by the brim of his fedora. The psychological training Henri provided went beyond just surface behavior. He taught Alain how to compartmentalize emotions, how to maintain focus under pressure, and how to think several steps ahead in any situation. A professional is always running multiple scenarios in his head, Henri explained during one memorable session. He's thinking, what if the target doesn't show up? What if there are unexpected witnesses? What if the escape route is blocked? He has contingency plans for contingency plans. This understanding allowed Alain to portray violence in the film with a matter-of-fact efficiency that was more disturbing than any dramatic display of brutality could have been. When Jeff Costello killed, it was with the same casual competence that most people might use to make a phone call. The relationship between Alain and Henri became increasingly complex as filming progressed. Henri seemed genuinely interested in whether an actor could truly understand his world, while Alain became fascinated by the psychological mechanisms that allowed someone to function as a professional killer. Henri never tried to justify what he did, Alain later recalled. He wasn't evil in any traditional sense. He was simply someone who had removed moral considerations from his professional calculations. In some ways, it was more frightening than meeting someone who was obviously dangerous. As filming neared completion, Henri began preparing to disappear back into the shadows from which he had emerged, but his influence on the production had been profound and lasting. When Le Samouraï was released in 1967, critics immediately recognized that something extraordinary had been achieved. Alain's performance was unlike anything that had been seen in crime cinema before. It was authentic in a way that suggested genuine understanding rather than mere imitation. Delon doesn't play a killer, he embodies one. There's a difference between acting and becoming, and somehow Delon has managed to become something that should probably remain in the realm of fiction. The film became an instant classic, influencing countless other crime movies and establishing Alain as one of the premier actors of his generation. The influence of Henri's teachings could be seen not just in Alain's performance, but in how the entire crime genre began to evolve. Before Le Samouraï, most cinematic assassins were portrayed as either glamorous action heroes or obviously deranged psychopaths. Henri's insights helped create a new archetype, the professional killer as a methodical technician, someone who was simultaneously more human and more frightening than previous portrayals. Film schools began studying the movie not just for its artistic merits, but as an example of how authentic research could elevate a performance beyond mere acting into something approaching documentary realism. The character of Jeff Costello became a template that influenced everyone from directors like John Woo to actors like Chow Yun-fat in The Killer. The psychological authenticity that Henri had brought to the project also influenced how other directors approached similar material. Crime films began incorporating more realistic details about criminal methodology, moving away from the theatrical violence that had dominated the genre toward more unsettling portrayals of professional criminal behavior. But the true test of the performance's impact came the following year when Alain was nominated for and won the César Award for Best Actor. The jury specifically cited the unprecedented psychological authenticity of his portrayal, though they had no idea about the source of that authenticity. During the awards ceremony, several industry veterans commented that Alain's performance had redefined what was possible in crime cinema. Director Claude Sautet, who would later work with Alain, noted that something had changed in how actors approached difficult characters after seeing what Delon achieved in Le Samouraï. International recognition followed quickly. The film was selected for numerous international festivals, and critics around the world praised Alain's performance for its chilling authenticity and psychological depth. Many noted that he seemed to understand his character from the inside out in a way that suggested genuine insight rather than clever acting. The influence extended beyond just the film industry. Criminologists and psychologists began referencing the character of Jeff Costello in academic discussions about criminal psychology, noting that the portrayal seemed to capture authentic aspects of antisocial personality disorders that were rarely depicted accurately in popular media. In his acceptance speech, Alain made a cryptic reference to his unusual preparation for the role. Sometimes, to portray truth on screen, an actor must encounter truth in life. I was fortunate to work with someone who helped me understand a world that most people can only imagine. Henri, of course, was not present at the ceremony. He had disappeared as quietly as he had arrived, leaving behind only the influence of his teachings and a performance that would be studied by actors and film scholars for decades to come. Years later, when asked about his preparation for Le Samouraï, Alain would only say, "I learned from someone who understood the character better than any script could teach me. That person preferred to remain anonymous, and I respect that preference." The secrecy surrounding Henri's identity only added to the mystique of the film and Alain's performance. Industry insiders occasionally speculated about who the mysterious consultant might have been, but no one ever came forward with definitive information. Some suggested he was a composite of several different criminal contacts, while others believed he was exactly who he appeared to be. What remained indisputable was the lasting impact of the collaboration. Other actors began seeking out similar authentic experiences for their own challenging roles. Robert De Niro's preparation for Taxi Driver, Al Pacino's research for Scarface, and countless other method acting legends all traced their inspiration back to the unprecedented authenticity that Alain had achieved through his work with Henri. The true identity of Henri was never publicly revealed, and he never worked on another film. Some suspected he was a composite of several different sources, while others believed he was exactly who he appeared to be, a real professional killer who had briefly stepped out of the shadows to share his expertise. What remained undeniable was the extraordinary quality of Alain's performance and its lasting influence on crime cinema. The character of Jeff Costello became the template for countless other fictional assassins, but none ever matched the authentic psychological complexity that Henri had helped Alain achieve through his work with Henri. The collaboration between actor and killer had produced something unprecedented in cinema, a portrayal of professional violence that was both completely convincing and deeply unsettling in its authenticity. Today, Le Samouraï is considered one of the greatest crime films ever made, and Alain's performance is studied as a masterclass in subtle psychological acting. But few people know that the key to that performance came from an encounter with someone who lived the reality that most actors can only pretend to understand. If this incredible story of method acting taken to its ultimate extreme fascinated you, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Share this video with someone who loves behind-the-scenes movie stories and great acting. And tell us in the comments, how far should an actor go to achieve authenticity in their performance? Because sometimes the pursuit of truth in art leads to encounters with truths that are stranger than any fiction.